I messed up tonight. I lost another fight. I still mess up, but I'll just start again. I keep falling down. I keep on hitting the ground. I always get enough to see what's next. Birds don't just fly, they fall down and get up. Nobody learns without getting it wrong. I won't give up, no I won't give in till I reach the end and then I'll start again. No I won't leave, I wanna try everything, I wanna try even though I could fail.
Hello and welcome to Minute 1 of Zootopia Minute. We are back. If you're listening to us, that means we have a successful first pilot episode, and we are now recording our second episode, which is technically our first minute. And we need to work our introductions. I still don't know what I want to be called by, so at the moment you guys could refer to me as Jocko. And I'm not going to just say anything about myself, because we're going to keep that a mystery right now. I'm joined by my co-host, Simo. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, Simul. A lot of people say Simul, and I usually don't care to correct them, but officially it's Simul.
Yeah, people say Choco as Coco or Choco, and it's like...
Really?
Yeah. Well, again, it's
Choco.
a nickname I didn't pick for myself. It's a nickname the fandom picked for me, so...
I see.
Weird. Alright,
Fair
so we're just going to do simple introductions. I think that's good enough for now. And we're going to move right into the very first minute of Zootopia. We start at minute 1, and we end at minute 2. Minute 1 is right after the title credits, and minute 2 is right as the boxes lift up, and we see both Judy and the little cheetah character in their fancy...
Angelic robes.
Yes, with the little lamb character with the rainbow.
Yes.
Oh, pretty. Alright, so first impressions. We start off in the jungle with not anthropomorphic animals. We have real animals. And we see a little bunny who looks a lot like Thumper from Bambi.
Oh, I haven't even thought about that character in years.
You know,
Thanks.
people will refer to, we were talking about how, remember seeing the lead up to Zootopia and seeing the reaction of the fan communities. A lot of people were drawing comparisons between Nick Wilde and the Fox and Robin Hood. And I don't think Disney specifically, they might actually, no, they do have an in-house style, but I'm wondering if a lot of these animal designs are actually based off in-house animal designs that they have had in previous movies like, you know, Robin Hood, Dumbo, and Bambi and all that stuff.
All that golden age stuff.
Yeah. Like, did you see that when you saw any of the animals so far?
That didn't come to mind initially, but I can see it now you mention it. Part of me wonders if that is even intentional on Disney's part. That could be some sort of weird, like, subconscious thing.
Okay.
To be fair, they've kind of dictated the way that cartoon animals have been drawn for the past, half century at least.
Them and Warner Brothers and another group. But yeah, specifically Disney. So we were talking about earlier about how we thought the movie should open. And so we have the title sequence come up, and we have an open to the forest, and then a sharp transition to it being revealed that it's actually a play being performed by these little kids. Do you think that having the opening with the characters in the primitive forest would have been as a cold opening, and then the title reveal comes later, or you think it's fine the way it is?
I mean, in our last episode I said, I like having it where it is. It's, I think that had a lot to do with sort of the way that movie was anticipated. It lets you know right away, the wait is over, the movie is here, you can watch it. But, I don't know, maybe if you ask me later when we're a bit further in, maybe I'd be able to draw some sort of solid conclusion on if that would have worked better, or if they were trying to do some specific narrative flair with where they decided to put that opening. But, I think it works in the short term anyway.
Okay. Did you like the bait and switch, I guess?
The bait and switch?
Because
what do you mean?
It starts off and you think they're non-anthro animals, they're like realistic looking animals, and it switches to, it's actually a play being performed by these little kids. Yeah.
That was interesting. Well, okay. This struck me, the first time I saw the movie too, is that it's just kind of weird for me that they're even calling back to, I guess, what's supposed to be represented as like ancient times. Because they're saying like, but then we evolved, we moved past this. So they clearly are saying like, this is a way we used to be and now we're this way. And it's the type of thing where I don't think if I was living in this animal society that I would necessarily be thinking really hard about that. I mean, it's important for the plot of the movie because, well, I mean, this is talking about things that haven't happened yet, really. But I can see how it gets important for the movie later that you need to have this before and after, like animals used to be savage, now they're not. So that's necessary for the storytelling. But realistically, it's not as if humans think of ourselves all the time as like, we used to be like this, but now we're like this.
Caveman. Well,
right, it's playing off the fact that they are animals, and so some of that, in some minor way, betrays the fact that these are animals and that humans are, you know,
playing off
the storytellers.
It's combining two different things, and I guess at the moment we have to mention, I guess it's hard to continue being PC when we talk about these topics, but it's obvious that the big element of this movie is racial tension in the United States. I guess the different class divisions and all that. Specifically, it's basically the racial makeup of the United States, how we're a melting pot, and similar to this in Zootopia, you have a melting pot of characters. The creator of Zootopia said he was intrigued to kind of push, because originally the movie was supposed to be a spy movie, but he was intrigued to push in the route that it went when he learned that in nature, predators make up 10% of the animal kingdom while the other 90% is always prey. Mm-hmm. And that's very similar to, I guess, blacks and whites in America, if you exclude the Asians like myself and all the other minority races. But I guess that's the one social statement it's trying to make. And on the other hand, it's also trying to shoe in the idea that these are the caveman version of themselves, which, if we're trying to tie in, I think that the good thing about this movie is it seems like anyone could put themselves into the shoes of these different characters. I guess we'll talk about this later, but I saw different families come in with different impressions of the movie. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting because some people identify with different characters, it doesn't matter what their race or gender was. So we have this interesting element that we could definitely talk about. It's a movie that's specifically made not to represent anything, but it's easy to shoehorn your own ideas or feelings.
Oh, absolutely. It's an empty vessel. You can make it about whatever you want.
Which, I guess, when we get into talking more about the animation, it's something that Scott McCloud talks about in his Understanding Comics when he talks about amplification through simplification. The more kind of simple a character is, the more you identify with them because it's, like you said, more empty vessel. But the more complex and realistic something looks, the more it's disconnected from yourself.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is an aside, but that's the exact same reason that the oatmeal, if you're familiar.
Yes, I met him actually. We should get him as a guest, but I met him he came to my university and I gave him some fan art. Yeah.
He's a Seattle local.
Oh, awesome.
I think. Anyway, because he's at like all the Emerald City Comic Cons and he's done specific comics about Seattle. But anyway, he made the exact same point about Twilight. Because back when Twilight was like the thing that everyone was talking about, back when they first started announcing the Twilight movies, he did a comic about, why does everyone like this so much? And his basic point was that Bella, the main character, is kind of written as this hollow shell of a character that a
Mary
female
Sue's, or
reader,
what we call them, I guess.
Exactly. It's a Mary Sue kind of thing that a female reader would easily be able to put themselves into this story, and that's kind of why it has that appeal. That was his theory anyway, so I could see how it might be the same kind of
deal. I think you're definitely looking at it from the side why a lot of these schlocky movies that, like, the Michael Bay films, the Dan Brown novels, the Stephanie Meyer novels, the Steph MacFarlane horrible TV shows. No one mentions Steph MacFarlane. Why, apparently, even though some of us like for me, who I'm the cynical person who I don't like people having fun, I want kids off my lawn, I will say that I'm more for art. I would say that these are sloppy commercial products, but these things are very, very popular. You see how much Twilight is making in theaters and all that stuff because it's like you said, an empty vessel to fill someone choosing. But at the same time, I think from the art perspective, looking at what Scott McCloud was talking about, the reason why kids identify so well with cartoon shows as opposed to live action stuff is because it's easier for kids to fill themselves into cartoon characters the more simple they are. Reason why I think anime is very popular the way it is, people identify with anime a lot more, and in anime you have the moe characteristics where there's a specific simple look, but it connotates so much personality within these different types of characters. I think even more with our fandom, My Little Pony. You see a lot of people identify more with the simple characters, and if they look like realistic horses, I don't think we would have that same impression.
See, that is interesting. You know, I've heard this brought up several times in different places and panels and all sorts of different areas, but it's interesting because if you ask people who their favorite pony is, it could be any of the main six, it could be whatever background character, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you ask people who they most relate with on MLPFIM, it's more than often Twilight. And I think that's kind of for this same reason because Twilight is sort of, if there is any
and
one
for non-bronies,
character,
not the vampire Twilights we were talking about earlier.
Oh yeah, right. That might be hard to follow. People like, man, I'm totally lost. I don't know what they're talking about. No, yeah, Twilight Sparkle. If there is any one character that's a central character to MLP, it would be Twilight Sparkle. You know, she's the character we're first introduced to when the series opens up. And people always say, oh yeah, I relate most to her. Well, that's because she's the most rounded out character. She's the most realistically written character. Each of the main six is designed to exemplify one specific trait, maybe with the exception of Twilight being, and people will say, oh no, she's book smart. That's her thing. Yes, but she's also just the most human character there in the show, in my opinion.
She's also the only one that became a human.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So yeah, I
think about that.
All the stuff we were talking about, like simple character designs and also Empty Vessel, is I think what we've seen, especially when Zootopia came out. In the news, you have different groups identifying with different characters, and you see kids who don't even care about all the social stuff or all this political correct stuff. Liking this movie because, like we were saying, the kids identify with more simple faces as opposed to more complex stuff. And I think the main comparison is we don't have a close equivalent to what's happening in Zootopia World. Like, that's the main thing I was trying to talk about 5 minutes ago. Because the closest we have is we diverge from Neanderthals. We Homo sapiens, and we diverge from Neanderthals and Homo erectus and stuff. I'm a biology major if you guys don't know. But Neanderthals haven't lived and evolved in a society of alongside us. We might have interbred with them, but they died off and they no longer are existing, and we are currently the only Homo species still around to this day.
We're the only homos left.
You know our friends are gonna make jokes about that thing. You know they've been shipping our characters ever since they've seen us hanging out at BronyCon.
Here giving you stuff to cut out all the time. That's gonna be my job.
I want to keep this stuff.
Don't cut that out. Keep that.
Okay. So we have Homo sapiens. They evolved separately from Homo erectus and Neanderthals. But in this world, we have a bunch of, aside from, we haven't seen avians, we haven't seen fish, we haven't seen insects, but it's mostly mammals. I think they said specifically mammals and specifically no primates.
Yes,
so you don't
only
see
the
primates
furries,
in this movie.
not the featheries or the scalies, just the furries.
And no primates, no monkeys,
yes.
no human-like creatures.
And no domesticated, no regular old cats or dogs.
That's why I noticed there's no cats or dogs, because I was thinking, so we're probably going to bring this back to the anti-Zootopia BoJack Horseman. We're probably going to tie it back a lot. But yeah, I was noticing in BoJack, yeah, cats and dogs, but then I'm like, wait, in this world you don't. It's like, yeah, because these are creatures that we kind of created, we domesticated them. Though the pigs look very domesticated. That's the one thing that kind of threw me off, were the pigs.
Right, but the thing is, I think that might have to do more with not enough people know what a wild boar even looks like. Yeah. So they just have to go with the typical, like, farmhouse pink pig.
So I guess what we saw at the beginning, we saw a wild cat, saber-toothed cat, trying to chase down a little bunny. And they evolved, and somehow, I guess we could theorize about this later, but they've somehow evolved into a society where all these species co-evolved alongside each other so that they would have the same language, same societal structure, the same morals, the same ethics. Mm-hmm. And we don't have a real equivalent to that in the human world because, like I said, our closest ancestors all died off. Bonobos and chimpanzees are our two closest relatives, but look how we're treating them. Mm-hmm. And I guess, so most people will tie this into the racial thing, you know.
Yes. Which brings up an interesting question that maybe in this animal society at some point, you know, because different animals live in different parts of the world, and you can kind of see how they've called back to that. I mean, again, later in the movie, but the way the city's designed is like all these different biomes, basically. But you could suppose, I guess, that in the ancient history of this civilization, at some point, maybe all these different species did live separately. They didn't really intermingle as much as they do now. And so maybe they did have different languages or, you know, different customs. And maybe that was a wall that had to be teared down when they began integrating their society a bit more.
Which is funny. It's kind of the opposite because we were one species and we basically fractured into different cultures and languages and all that stuff. And this is the opposite. And actually, like, spoilers for later, but when we go to the Natural History Museum in this movie, I think there's a scene where you see primitive lions and primitive zebras, like, shaking hands. Like the first meetings with each other. So I guess it's an interesting world. I guess we could, it's like we could theorize about BoJack Horseman, how that world came about. We could theorize about how My Little Pony came about. Like, all the stuff they use in My Little Pony would need, like, thumbs and hands, yet they all have hooves. So it's a lot of stuff. But specifically for Zootopia, it's something that I want to keep this a fun podcast, but I definitely know we're going to probably be getting into the social commentary a lot, and it's going to be interesting because being Taiwanese, I am kind of the minority, and then I guess you, what's your background?
Like most white people, I'm going to name a sort of European salad. I mean, my name is very strongly French, obviously. I've got a bit of plain old metropolitan French in there. There's some French Canadian somewhere. Most of the other people I've found that have my surname are Quebecois. So I guess that sort of Francophone area.
I definitely, because I think we kind of get along because we have some very similar views, I think, on culture, society, and politics. But I do hope as we go along, we do have different views on how we see different things just based off our backgrounds. And I was going to save this for later, but I guess I'll just say it now. I saw the movie 2 times in the same theater, and both times there was a black family in front of me. So there was like 2 different families for the 2 different times I saw it. And what was interesting is both of them reacted differently to the movies. The first time I saw it, I think you have a lot of people comparing the predators in the movie to the African American population of the United States, with the percentage of them being minority, being identified with being thuggish criminals and stuff. So I guess a lot of blacks, when they see the movie, I say they will identify more with the predators, and they said it's a good movie because it helps whites and others understand prejudice in a more kid-friendly way. So the first family I saw, that was in front of me, and my black friend who was with me, he definitely saw it in that perspective, where he identified more with predators. Second time I saw it, a family in front of me, I specifically remember the mother, for some reason, was identifying strongly with the sheep character. What's her name?
Assistant Mayor Bellwether.
Assistant Mayor Bellwether. And specifically, I could pinpoint a scene. So there's a specific scene where, spoilers for a movie, where Nick the fox was touching the wool hair of the sheep.
Stop touching it.
Yeah. And then at that moment, I saw the mother in the row before me start shaking her head. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. You do not touch that. And I realized what she was trying to say, because most people, when they think about African Americans, they think about their coarse afro type hair. And I guess the joke on the internet is white people always come up and ask to touch, black people hair. Is it okay to touch it? How's it feel? How do you style it? And all that stuff. And I definitely drew that. I think it clicked in my head that I saw that she made that connection when Nick was touching Mary Bellwether's hair, that she at that moment was like, no, you don't. You do not touch that. You do not touch that. And I just saw her shaking the head, and I thought that was a surreal experience, that at that moment she identified more with the prey in the movie. So it's interesting, like we're saying, it's an empty vessel that different people of different backgrounds and cultures could put themselves in, and it might not even be the same interpretation each time. Each person will have a different interpretation watching this movie.
That's something that I really enjoyed about this movie, is that if it is trying to make any sort of racial parallel, it's not trying to say this group of animals is specifically this race, this group of animals is specifically this other race. I don't think the message was that these people are racist towards these people. It's more so that, like, people are often prejudiced towards other people, and it didn't try to make it too much of like one side being hugely antagonistic.
Which I liked how
it's refreshing.
I like how soft they were playing with this, like not in an offensive way, but like how they played it without trying to make a firm. Because I think growing up in California and seeing the movies, like a lot of the movies, our generation, millennials, we see movies that are really, really politicized. They're either really, really left-wing, hardcore, progressive, or they're really, really radical right-wing opinions. Like, there's really no gray area where it seems like all these different movies and shows take a firm opinion on one thing. And whether you like that work or not depends on whether you agree with those political or social views. So I think most Republicans will like Jack Bauer in 24 because, he's a hardline guy who has to use torture to get information out of terrorists, and you have most liberals liking everything else because Hollywood's all liberal. Whatever. But, wow, we are not going to be PC. So, but in Zootopia, I like that it's like they aren't doing that. They aren't trying to make it where these are specifically blacks, these are specifically whites. This is she's oppressed because she's specifically female, and these cops are specifically all male. Like, they kind of tiptoe around that, so it becomes more open for everybody. So it doesn't offend everybody, but also makes it so people could grasp on different things without thinking it has a political agenda.
Yes.
Which is weird because I like WALL-E. Like, the movie WALL-E is one of my favorite Pixar movies.
Same. Oh my gosh.
And I remember around that time, I think Glenn Beck was big on Fox News, because I remember specifically someone turned on Glenn Beck and I was watching Glenn Beck and he was talking about WALL-E. And then he was specifically saying, WALL-E is a global warming conspiracy movie. It's trying to brainwash our kids to think global warming is going to destroy the world and stuff. And I'm like, I don't think that was it.
Except that was so not really central to the story. Like, if the story involved them needing to become somehow more environmental in order to succeed at whatever they're trying to achieve, then sure, maybe. But I think in the case of WALL-E, they kind of just used that as a framework to set the narrative. It wasn't vital to the plot that, by the way, global warming exists. It was, how do we present a scenario where these characters come together in this way and we get this point across? And that was just the way they chose to do it.
And I guess that's an example of one movie I specifically remember that I didn't think about that, but for some other people, it was a very, very polarizing movie. And it's funny because, like, I have other friends who thought it was against big business and about, respecting small businesses and stuff. But Zootopia, for some, I think it didn't really go that line where it didn't even make that assumption where I think, because I think, both of us have a lot of left and right wing friends on the different sides of the spectrums, and I don't think anyone really took offense to this, which is so surprising because you normally see every time a movie comes out, one view dominates, and one group of people really, really like the movie, like you have the American Sniper folks, and then you have the Jarhead folks. So it's very jarring, especially again, we don't want to go all. It's hard to not be PC, but we have a lot of people who promote hardcore feminism really, really identify with this movie, and then you have the people who are egalitarians or I guess anti-feminists or I don't know I don't want to say man's rights activists because I think that's a whole entire different term. But you have more egalitarian people saying, oh, it's a movie that's actually not about feminism. It's trying to talk about a more, like, she's not held back just because she's female. There's a lot of other things that's holding her back and she has to succeed before this. God, there's so much stuff you have to be careful.
It's okay. It's a long movie. We've got lots of minutes.
It's a long movie. But yeah, so that's kind of a weird situation we're in where it's kind of good that it's like all these different opinions formed around it without people taking one side and making it politicized for their particular view. And I guess what I'm summarize, I'm trying to say. Sorry, to take over.
And I mean, it depends on the content. There's certainly some media that, like, it's very clear what side the media itself is trying to take. But there's other things where it's very clear that people just sort of impose their own views on it. And there are certainly people that have done that with Zootopia on both sides of the aisle. But I think they are shot down a bit more quickly than a lot of other media might allow for when the intention of the author is a lot more clear. Because, again, with Zootopia not really presenting any specific type of animal as representing a specific race or being the minority or the majority, it kind of flip-flops back and forth in the movie, which could mean which. So I think that kind of helped to prevent it from being too polarizing. You know, you don't even need to make it about biological race in, you know, the way we think of skin color. It could just as easily be about just being from a different culture or any other sort of social division that exists. It's just sort of a life lesson you would want to teach to kids is, hey, don't be prejudiced. So I think Zootopia specifically made a good choice in that they didn't try to make it specifically this social message. It was, here is a general thing that everyone should probably observe, and everyone was pretty much happy with it.
And maybe that's the beauty with having anthropomorphic animals as characters. Like a lot of our parents and grandparents grew up with like Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny, because you can't really identify different races on these different characters. Or even more recently, I guess our fandom, My Little Pony, we can't really identify certain ethnic human races onto these different characters. Because of that, you can't really like shoehorn you can shoehorn, but it doesn't have a specific message making commentary one way or another. Unlike like if you use a show and it had human characters, because then that becomes all messy, because depending on what race these different characters are will more often than not change someone's opinion on that piece and what the message is trying to get across.
For sure.
Alright, so we went through all those landmines. I think that's a good way to end the discussion for the first minute. Don't you think?
Probably.
At least we got that out of the way, so now we can move on to the fun stuff.
Yes. How long have we been going? Like 20 minutes on this one?
I think it is 20.
Okay, yeah, we should probably cut it off.
Alright. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for our very first minute of Zootopia Minute. Join us next time as we talk about the second minute.